Hey again. This is Emily Province, and we're going to talk a little bit more about risk factors that tend to make election violence more likely. As I've said before, even people who are experts can't actually predict whether there will or won't be election violence in a particular circumstance, but they can describe some of the patterns, the kinds of things that tend to be going on before election violence happens. One of those common risk factors, this is the second one that we've talked about, is when politicians are using blame-based rhetoric. And when I talk about blame-based rhetoric, basically that has to do with how people are saying stuff. And it's in contrast to problem solution rhetoric, which is a different way to say basically the same stuff, but talk about it differently. I want to give you two different examples. I'm going to give you an example of how this sounds when it comes from a conservative politician, and then I'm going to give you an example of how this sounds when it comes from a liberal politician, because both of them are things that really happen. All right, let's talk about first the conservative example. If I'm a conservative politician and I'm using blame-based rhetoric, I'm phrasing things in a way that I want to focus on who's to blame. I could say something like, immigrants coming over our southern border are causing a rise in crime and they are a threat to our national security. So this is me telling you that you should be afraid of people who are coming across the border. You should be afraid of immigrants. You should also be afraid of and or angry with people who are allowing this to happen. I'm intentionally bringing up feelings of fear and anger in you, but I'm not actually giving you a solution. If I want to talk about the same thing, I'm the same conservative politician, but I'm going to use problem solution rhetoric. Then I'm going to say something more like this. I might say, security on our southern border is a major problem for the United States, and in order to take care of that problem, I suggest that we revamp our asylum policy, and we also need to increase the number of border patrols. That's me giving you a problem. I'm talking about security on the border, and I'm giving you a solution. I'm talking about asylum policy and border controls. Let's give a liberal example, and then I'll talk to you about why politicians tend to use blame-based rhetoric. Here's the liberal example. If I'm a liberal politician, I might say something like, conservatives hate women and they want to control their bodies. So that's me telling you who to fear, who to blame, and who to be angry with. But if I'm the same politician and I'm talking about the same thing, but I'm using problem solution rhetoric, I'm going to say it more like this. I'd say, it's a real problem that women do not have a right to make decisions about their own reproductive systems. And so what we need to do is pass a national law giving a right to women to make their own decisions and have access to abortion. That's me using the liberal politician example of problem solution speak. I'm identifying a specific problem. I'm offering you a specific solution. So if I'm a politician, why do I want to use blame-based rhetoric? Why do I want to tell you who to fear and not actually give you a solution? For one thing, the deal is if I don't give you a solution, you can't criticize my solution. You cannot come against me and say, I think your solution is bad, because I didn't offer one. So there's nothing for you to criticize. The other thing that it happens if I give you enough blame-based rhetoric is that I can make you angry enough and scared enough and make you blame enough the quote unquote other side that you go into a sort of mental state where you just want to be safe. You just want to make things okay again. And you are more likely to vote for the person whose ideas most align with yours if that's the position that you're in. If you're sufficiently angry and frightened, you will just vote for the person who seems most to agree with you. That's a natural thing. It's just how our brains tend to work. We tend to lean in that direction of, I'm going to vote for the safer option. But this is dangerous. It's actually a really dangerous pattern when politicians start doing this, because they're making people very afraid and very angry. And when people are afraid and angry, they start othering and they start dehumanizing. They think that the person that they're angry with, the person they're afraid of, the person they blame, maybe isn't really a person at all. Maybe that group is something less than human. And when we think that somebody is less than human, that is the first step to our ability to be violent against them. The other thing that blame-based rhetoric does is it causes people over time to believe that the government doesn't offer any hope. They're not giving us solutions, after all. The candidates are not actually saying what we should do about these problems. And so it causes us to maybe be more likely to have to seek a violent solution. We think to ourselves, well, voting for the right candidates and so forth isn't actually going to have any effect on the problem, and therefore we might have to consider becoming violent. So what do? When we notice that politicians are using this kind of blame-based rhetoric, that's actually the first step already. I have noticed it. I have paid attention to the fact that it's happening. Then I can ask these politicians for solutions. Hey, listen, this is unsatisfying. You're telling me what the problem is. You're telling me who to be scared of. You're telling me who to be angry with, but you're not actually giving me any solutions. Tell me what your solution to the problem is. Also, I can just refuse to fear. I can say, I'm not going to be scared of people that I don't know. I'm going to reach out and get to know the other, whoever that is, whoever it is that my preferred politicians are telling me to be scared of. I'm going to reach out and learn about them and get to know that group of people and find out, are they really so scary? And then the last thing that we can do is we can try to believe in actual hope for transformation. The truth is, we can force other people to do things by changing the law, but that's not how we change hearts. We change hearts by actually being in relationship and pushing for transformation of people. And that's not something that we do on a huge scale all at once. It's something that happens in small groups, one-on-one, small conversations. But if we believe there's really hope for that, then we can believe that there's actual hope for transformation of our society. Okay, so let's review. The first two risk factors, things that tend to make election violence more likely. The first one is, has there been a recent history of election violence in this country? And the second one is, are politicians using blame-based rhetoric? And then how do we counter this? If politicians are using blame-based rhetoric, we notice it, we challenge it, we question it, and we get to know each other so that we know we don't actually have to be afraid and angry of one another to the degree that the politicians are trying to convince us that we do. Next conversation, we'll cover the third risk factor.